I used to think I understood why some men became successful and others didn't. It seemed obvious. The successful ones were smarter, more confident, more disciplined. At least, that's what I told myself every time I watched them walk into meetings, make decisions, or lead conversations. Then one ordinary Tuesday afternoon, I noticed something that didn't fit that story at all. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. A few years ago, I worked in a mid-sized company downtown. Nothing glamorous. Just another office building filled with people trying to build careers, pay bills, and figure out life as they went. Every morning followed the same pattern. People arrived carrying coffee cups, checking emails before they even sat down. Conversations filled the hallways. Deadlines appeared. Meetings started. And every day, I noticed the same person. His name was Daniel. He wasn't the loudest guy in the office. He wasn't the most charismatic. Honestly, if you met him for the first time, you probably wouldn't remember much about him. But somehow, everyone respected him. Managers trusted him. Clients listened to him. Opportunities seemed to find him. I remember watching him during meetings and thinking there had to be some secret I wasn't seeing. Because from the outside, he looked almost ordinary. Meanwhile, I was doing what many people do. I was working hard. Trying to prove myself. Trying to sound smart. Trying to avoid mistakes. Trying to create the image of someone who had everything under control. Looking back, I realize how exhausting that was. At the time, though, I thought that was what successful people did. I thought confidence meant appearing certain. I thought leadership meant having answers. I thought success came from convincing others that you knew exactly what you were doing. Then something happened that quietly challenged that belief. One afternoon, our team was preparing a presentation for a major client. The project was important. The room felt tense. Everyone was discussing strategies and solutions. Ideas were flying around the table. People spoke quickly. Some interrupted each other. Others defended their opinions. And then someone asked Daniel a direct question. "What do you think we should do?" I expected an immediate answer. Instead, he paused. Not for a second. For several seconds. Long enough that the silence felt noticeable. Then he said something unexpected. "I don't know yet." The room became quiet. I remember feeling uncomfortable. Part of me thought admitting uncertainty was dangerous. Wouldn't that make him look weak? Wouldn't people lose confidence in him? But something surprising happened. Nobody questioned his competence. Nobody seemed concerned. In fact, everyone listened even more closely. He continued. "I think we're missing something. Let's spend another hour looking at the client's perspective before deciding." That was it. Simple. Calm. No dramatic speech. No attempt to sound brilliant. And yet somehow, his words carried weight. The meeting ended differently than expected. The team reconsidered several assumptions. A new strategy emerged. Weeks later, the project became one of our biggest successes that year. I couldn't stop thinking about that moment. Why did uncertainty strengthen his credibility instead of weaken it? Why did people trust him more after he admitted he didn't know? The question stayed with me. Months passed. The curiosity remained. So I started paying closer attention. Not just to Daniel. To other successful people I encountered. Business owners. Managers. Entrepreneurs. People who consistently earned trust and produced results. At first, I expected to discover a pattern of confidence. Instead, I discovered a pattern of humility. The truly successful people weren't obsessed with looking right. They were obsessed with getting things right. That distinction sounds small. But psychologically, it's enormous. Most people spend energy protecting their image. Successful people spend energy improving their understanding. The difference changes everything. I began noticing how often average conversations were actually battles for status. People defended opinions they secretly doubted. They argued positions they hadn't fully examined. They avoided admitting mistakes because they feared appearing weak. I recognized those behaviors immediately. Because I did them too. More than I wanted to admit. Then another moment changed my perspective even further. A few months later, I was working directly with Daniel on a challenging project. We made a decision early in the process. A week later, new information appeared. The decision was clearly wrong. Not catastrophically wrong. Just wrong enough that it needed correction. I remember waiting to see how he would respond. Most people become defensive in those situations. They explain, justify, protect their ego. Daniel did none of those things. He looked at the information, nodded, and said, "Looks like we got that wrong." That was it. No excuses. No blame. No attempt to rewrite history. Just acceptance. Then he immediately shifted focus towards solving the problem. I remember feeling strangely unsettled. Not because of what happened. Because of how unusual it felt. Why was admitting mistakes so difficult for most people? Why did it feel rare? That question followed me home that evening. And eventually, I stumbled into an uncomfortable realization. Most of us aren't protecting our decisions. We're protecting our identity. When an idea fails, we unconsciously feel as though we have failed. When a belief is challenged, we feel personally threatened. When we're wrong, our ego interprets it as weakness. So we resist. Defend. Explain. Rationalize. Anything except simply learning. The successful men I had observed seemed different. Their identity wasn't attached to being right. Their identity was attached to growth. And because of that, they could adapt faster. Learn faster. Recover faster. That realization changed the way I viewed success entirely. But there was still another lesson waiting. One I didn't understand until years later. Outside of work, life became complicated. A close friendship ended unexpectedly. Nothing dramatic happened. We simply drifted apart after a disagreement neither of us handled well. For months, I replayed conversations in my head. Trying to determine who was right. Who was wrong. Who should have apologized first. The more I thought about it, the more frustrated I became. Then one evening, I remembered something Daniel once said during lunch. Success isn't about understanding yourself. It's about understanding other people. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Now it returned to me. So I tried something different. Instead of replaying my own perspective, I attempted to imagine his. Not to excuse his behavior. Not to judge mine. Just to understand. For the first time, I considered his fears. His pressures. His assumptions. His experiences. And suddenly, the entire situation looked different. Not because I was completely wrong. But because I had only been seeing half the picture. That experience taught me another hidden truth. Many successful men possess something that rarely gets discussed. Empathy. Not soft empathy. Not performative empathy. Real empathy. The ability to understand perspectives beyond their own. The ability to listen without immediately preparing a defense. The ability to remain curious when others become emotional. Most people think success comes from influencing others. But influence often begins with understanding others. People trust those who make them feel understood. People follow those who genuinely listen. People cooperate with those who demonstrate empathy. The psychology behind this is simple. Everyone wants to feel seen. Everyone wants their experience acknowledged. The men who consistently succeed often recognize this long before everyone else does. As the years passed, I noticed one final pattern. Perhaps the most important one. The successful men I admired weren't necessarily fearless. That surprised me. Because confidence from a distance looks like fearlessness. Up close, it looks completely different. I watched successful entrepreneurs worry before major decisions. I watched executives doubt themselves before presentations. I watched leaders admit uncertainty during difficult moments. The fear existed. The difference was their relationship with it. Most people wait for confidence before acting. Successful people act before confidence arrives. They don't interpret fear as a stop sign. They interpret it as information. Something to acknowledge, not obey. That distinction changed how I approached challenges. I stopped asking, "Am I confident enough?" I started asking, "What matters more than my discomfort right now?" Strangely, that question created more confidence than chasing confidence ever did. And that's when the entire picture finally came together. The real psychology of successful men isn't hidden in productivity hacks. It's not hidden in morning routines. It's not hidden in motivational quotes. It's hidden in how they relate to themselves. They don't need to appear right all the time. They don't fear being wrong. They remain curious longer than most people. They separate their identity from their opinions. They seek understanding before judgment. They allow discomfort without surrendering to it. Most importantly, they spend less energy protecting their ego and more energy expanding their perspective. That shift changes decisions, relationships, opportunities, and ultimately, outcomes. Today, when I meet someone genuinely successful, I rarely pay attention to what they own or what title they have. I pay attention to how they think, how they respond when challenged, how they handle mistakes, how they treat people who can offer them nothing in return. Because those quiet moments reveal something achievements often hide: character. And perhaps that's the lesson most people never learn. Success isn't always built on intelligence, or talent, or confidence. Sometimes it's built on a willingness to see reality more clearly than your ego wants you to. I still think about that meeting years ago. The moment when Daniel simply said, "I don't know yet." At the time, it sounded like uncertainty. Now I hear something completely different. I hear strength. The strength to prioritize truth over image, growth over pride, understanding over certainty. And I wonder how different our lives might become if more of us learned that lesson earlier. Because maybe the question isn't whether we're capable of becoming more successful. Maybe the real question is, how much of what we believe about success is actually preventing us from achieving it?